Welcome to another installment of Artifact Highlight. Now this week I got a few items relating to the 28th Division, aka the Bloody Bucket, that fought in the European theater of the Second World War for the Allied powers, the United States technically. So I'm excited to go for some of these pieces. One is a yard long, which you've probably seen a portion of if you've been tuning into Uncut History as of late. I just recently finally got it hung up on the wall where it properly should be seen. I also have a piece I used to have hung up, but has since had to go away since it needs some repair work, but it has a cool history tied to World War II. And then I have a nice third small piece that a friend of mine just gifted to me. So without any further ado, let's dive right in. So for this installment of Artifact Highlight, because you can tell we're talking about yard long, and they're called a yard long for a reason, too big for the surface I usually film on. So we're filming on the bed. Apologize if anything looks disheveled. I try to clean the space up as best I can. And I also apologize in advance for my cat, who is just laying right out of frame. Oh, look at her. She knows she's being watched, and she's contemplating how she can destroy this video. Okay, we're gonna go back to the yard long. So I acquired this in the summer of 2023 at an antique show, and it was one of the strangest coincidences that have ever happened in my life. A little bit of backstory. One of the projects I'm involved with, not counting the YouTube channel, is working on a historic walking tour of one of my local communities. I've been working at that for about 2-3 years now. I've lost track of time. And I got binders full, actually right behind the camera, of notes I used for that walking tour. Last year was really exciting. We got to do 2 trial runs of the tour with a public audience. So that was really cool. And I'm hoping to flesh out the tours this coming summer. Well, one stops on the tour is the site of a long-established clothing store, which was called Martin's. Martin's traced its history back to 1900. It was opened by Robert S. Martin, and it was ran by 3 generations of the Martin family. It just sadly closed in March of 2023. So over 100 years of legacy there. Some consider it one of, if not the oldest clothing store in continuous operation in the Pittsburgh area. So we always make sure to stop at the site of Martin's while we're doing our walking tours. It's one of the highlights for me. And part of the reason is I get to tie in my investment in military history. The second generation of that store ownership was Robert Martin Jr., aka Hadley Martin, as everybody called him locally. And Hadley Martin became part of the 103rd Medical Battalion, which were attached to the 28th Infantry Division in the Second World War. You may be familiar with the 28th. They're the guys nicknamed the Bloody Bucket due to the keystone insignia that they used on all of their equipment. And the Bloody Bucket icon remains a very iconic symbol of the Pennsylvania National Guard even to this day. So on our tours, we stop. I talk about the Martin store. I talk about Hadley and his role in the Second World War. And after we were done talking, my friend, a humble collector, came up and he said, "You said Hadley was in the 103rd. Yes. Did you see the yard long over there?" "What are you talking about?" So we go over to this booth, and lo and behold, after me giving a tour and talking about Hadley Martin, like feet away, this was sitting for sale. And it was kind of at that moment, I didn't care what the price was going to be on it. I needed it. It's like, oh, this is too good to be true. I have since taken this down to the local genealogical room that the community has. This is not the only yard long that the head figure had seen of the 103rd Medical Battalion. However, this is the first one they had seen for Camp Livingston. And Camp Livingston is where units of the 28th Infantry Division gathered and got their training in 1942, early 1943. That was based down in Louisiana. In particular, this yard long is for Company D of the 103rd Medical Regiment. Later, they're typically called the Battalion. Now, something that has me hung up is Hadley Martin, who is in this photograph. You can see, if you're wondering why there's pencils, well, there is Hadley Martin right there in the center. And the second person to his left would have been Captain F.W. Faintner, who was the overall commander of this company. To their knowledge, the head figure, this is the only one they have seen that looks like this type of yard long of Company D finishing up basic training. So hopefully there's more out there. I would like to know if there's more out there, but to my knowledge, this may be one of the only surviving pieces for this. So really cool, really cool. With the exception of Martin, there are several other figures in this yard long that are from the local community that I do my tour for. And I don't know why I'm acting like I'm trying to cover it up. It's Ligonier, Pennsylvania. The 103rd actually had a armory in Ligonier, Pennsylvania prior to, during, and after the Second World War. I believe the army was built like in 1938. Sadly, it's no longer standing. It was torn down in the late 2000s to make way for a housing development. Bummer. So thankfully this survived, and according to the seller, this was actually property of Hadley Martin for many years, and that's how he acquired it when the store closed last year. So that leads again what the seller was telling me. The seller also is the one that put the frame on that I purchased this for. So yeah, it was a little bit of a higher figure than I would have liked, but Humble Collector helped me out. I couldn't pass up the piece, and the frame is really nice. It completes the whole yard long and saves me the hassle of having to go get a frame for it, because I don't have time for that. So yeah, what a coincidence. I'm doing a guided tour talking about this very company, this regiment, and yeah, it was for sale just a block down the street. So yeah, had to have it in my collection. If you watch my live streams, you may have saw a piece of it. It is usually in the upper, if you're watching, it'll be in the upper right hand corner. You can't see the full thing. I'm thinking one day I'm going to change it over to the wall behind my left on camera, because you'd be able to see it in its entirety, but that would require me to fix some of the frames. Since we're talking about the 28th Division, I figured I'd pull one more piece out from my collection today before it has to go back to the vault. And by vault, I mean storage shed. Yeah, you do what you can do. This is a piece of folk art by a veteran of the 110th Infantry of the 28th Division. This is done by Earl Fenwick. Now, something that's interesting to talk about is the roots of the 28th Division, and in particular the 110th Infantry. They go to National Guard units here in Pennsylvania, which were federalized to take part in both the First and Second World Wars. Now, when they federalized them, you would see soldiers from other walks of life get roped into these predominantly Pennsylvania regiments. And that's the case with Mr. Fenwick here. As far as I'm aware, Mr. Fenwick lived much of his life in Kansas. Now, I've been trying to seek out where his birthplace was. I've yet to find it. I know he lived most of his adult life after the war in Kansas, so I'm going to take a guess he actually came from Kansas. In particular, there's a placard on the back, and it tells you the brief history behind it. Made in 2000 by Earl Fenwick, Hutchinson, Kansas, served in L Company, 110th Infantry, World War II. So, this piece of folk art that he made in his later years of life. Now, I did find an obituary for Earl Fenwick. He just passed away a few years ago, back in 2017. So he was one of the last living, living veterans from this unit during World War II. So it's exciting. I'm excited to have this piece. I ended up picking this in Gettysburg about a year ago. And the clock, when I bought it, actually worked. Unfortunately, years have untightened the hands on them. So it still technically operates, but if you hang it up, the hands at a certain hour, they'll all just sloop down and get stuck. I'm hoping to try to find a way just to restore this back to operating condition, because, boy, I would really like to have a normal, traditional clock. You know how hard it is to get just a traditional clock? Everything's digitized nowadays, and I don't like that. I like this one. I could tell time with my 12 bloody buckets. But I want to get this back in operating condition. I did have it hanged up in the room for a while until the hands came undone. If I can't get the hands tightened, I'll likely have to replace the whole crank system, which I don't think should be too difficult. All I think I'll have to do is disassemble the hands and take them out of the loophole. But I would like not have to do that. I'd like to keep it the way that Mr. Fenwick had created this piece. So, yeah. If you have more information about Mr. Fenwick, please leave me know in the comment section below. I'd be happy to get as much history attached to this artifact as possible. One more final piece I want to mention about, just a very quick one. This one was actually gifted to me by a humble collector. Reportedly, this is a pin insignia for the 103rd Medical Battalion. Now, what's a little weird, peculiar about this is the seller marks it as both the 105th Medical Regiment, but also the 103rd Medical Battalion. And there's a piece of paper that also claims, no, this is the 103rd, it's part of the 28th, the one that we're focusing on with that yard long. I'm unsure about the 105th. I've never personally seen the 103rd referred alternatively as the 105th. And again, if you have any more information on this, please leave that information in the comment below. I'd be happy to add that to this artifact's history. Well, that's going to conclude this installment of Artifact Highlight. I thank you for watching. And again, if you have any more details relating to the artifacts you just saw, please let me know in the comments section below. And by information, stuff that adds to the artifact, not stuff that degrades it. You know what I'm talking about. But this was made in a little bit of a haste. You probably can tell I'm pretty winded at the moment. And the reason is I am getting ready to go on another trip, which means I can start making more content for Retracing History. It's been a while due to the winter. Looking forward to that. Also, there is a big project I've been working on, and I've alluded to it. It involves the space race. It's becoming far larger than I anticipated, which usually happens with these editorial projects, as I like to call them. So it has to be pushed back to February. I need to put something up this Saturday. This is the result. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button down below, both if you're watching on here or on Rumble. Also, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or on Rumble if you've not done so already. And if you would like to support our endeavors here at Readout Productions, you can purchase a cup of coffee for myself. Link is in the description below. And if you want to become part of our Garrison, which is our membership program, there's also a link in the description for that program. By becoming part of the Garrison, you will get access to select scripts and notes from videos and live streams I produce. You'll also get a monthly digital postcard, which is translation for you're going to get some behind-the-scenes photographs with some write-ups from my trips. And you'll have my undying gratitude for supporting the channel. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.